I am delighted to introduce our presenters today. Veriditas is expanding our offerings, and this is very exciting for us to be sponsoring this pilgrimage in Sweden. Lars Hallett is a faculty member for Veriditas in design and labyrinth construction. He's a skilled labyrinth builder, a photographer, and just became a new father. Jeff Sayward is world-renowned labyrinth historian and has responsible for the working on the Worldwide Labyrinth Locator. He's led Veriditas program in Chartres for us on constructing the Maison Labyrinth. And Kimberly, his wife, is past president of the Labyrinth Society, has done numerous pilgrimages, and is a Veriditas trained facilitator. So I'm not sure we could assemble a more qualified team to lead you on this tour to Gotland. And I'm going to turn it over to Jeff now.
Good evening. I hope you can hear us speaking to you from here in England. We'll start our presentation with some photographs of labyrinths from the beautiful island of Gotland. First, let me tell you where Gotland is, if you are not familiar with its location. It's one of the largest islands in the middle of the southern Baltic Sea, situated kind of midway between Sweden and Latvia. It's 85 by 30 miles, so a large island, and for many, many years, thousands of years in fact, the island of Gotland, with its obvious strategic location in the middle of the Baltic Sea, has been a crossroads for trade and cultural exchange. We will be staying on the island of Gotland for the week, and indeed we'll be staying in the city, the capital city of Visby, which is situated on the west side of the island and is surrounded by medieval stone walls. And we will be staying within the city walls at a four-star hotel, quite an old building in fact.
Hi, this is Kimberly, and I'm also speaking to you from England. And before I go on to say any more, I just want to say what a delight it is to use technology to assemble this team at a distance, because we worked with Lars last year and we found that the three of us really enjoyed the experience of working together, and we think we each bring something sort of different to the team. So I wanted to just tell you that the hotel that Jeff mentioned, he says it's a very old hotel, and it is. It is thoroughly modern and very beautiful. It's right smack in the center of things, so that you can easily walk and have meals, you can shop, you can look for labyrinths right there within walking distance of the hotel. We'll be introducing you to Visby as a group, but then we will, as Jeff's going to show in just a moment, be taking trips out so that we see far more of Gotland than just Visby. But I really want to express my love of Visby, because it is a beautiful and very, very charming city.
Do you want to just say something about this church here, Lars?
Yeah, so these are two churches in the capital of Visby. One is in ruins, and the other is a cathedral that is still used today. So in the ruins, it is actually the ruins of St. Lars, or the St. Lawrence Church. And when I was in there on one of my research trips, I noticed that the floor was a nice kind of clean gravel chalkboard. So I just, using my foot, drew the classical labyrinth within the floor of the ruins. And when we went on tour last year, we took a moment after lunch to visit these ruins and have a walk of a 7-circuit labyrinth in a medieval ruin that actually the ceiling is fallen out. So directly above this labyrinth is open sky. So this is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's just the labyrinths brought me there, but then it just opens up this history to you as a visitor.
I thought it was kind of fun that we found ways of adding to the labyrinth history that's already there. We're going to see a lot of old labyrinths, but every time I've been there, there's been an opportunity to create a temporary labyrinth to mark our being there, and that's been a really special experience for me each time.
Yes, we also plan on offering a couple of seminars during the tour. So we will be showing people how to draw classical labyrinth and discuss both the design and then experience it, walking it in its various forms. There's 7, 11, and 15 circuit classical labyrinths on the island.
And it's worth mentioning that in Visby itself, and I'll show some slides of this in a minute, there is one of the most important historic labyrinths in Sweden, in fact the most famous labyrinth in Sweden, and it is situated on Trelleborgsgatan in Visby, and there's even a road sign with the name of the labyrinth on it.
Trelleborg being the name of the labyrinth.
Troy Town.
Trelleborg.
Translated into English, yeah. And you'll see a few of these photos here. Gotland, particularly in the springtime, is truly quite a wonderful place. When the weather's with you, the scenery is absolutely stunning. We were on Gotland the same time last year, just a week difference from the time we're planning to go this year. And everywhere you went on the island, the lilacs were all in bloom. It was just absolutely stunning, just long banks with all of these lilac bushes everywhere, just reflecting the colour of the sky, just absolutely beautiful. So talk a little about these things.
Okay, I want to just piggyback onto the fact that the lilacs are all in bloom. The asparagus was also in season, yes, and it was superb. Now, we don't have any photographs of the asparagus right here, but as you can see, the fish is wonderful, the pastries are lovely, there's also wonderful shopping, local crafts and local artisans who sell their wares. We do try to make it a point to know and stop at a few of those places, both in Visby and out in the countryside as well. So I think getting to experience the culture, it's not only Swedish culture, but it's also a culture that is rather unique to the island. Anybody who spent time on islands knows that there is such a thing as an island culture, and it's certainly very palpable there on Gotland. I want to say one thing. We're talking about Visby, and we're talking about the island of Gotland and how we will see both the city and the entire island. Our plan is that we will have some seminars there at the hotel where we actually can give you some learning experiences. We will also have 3 different days where we take lengthy field trips each day in a different direction so that we cover just about the entire island. And we also want to include a spiritual and energetic component to each day so that it is truly a pilgrimage, so that the journey is an inward one, and we want to make room for that, as well as the outward journeying that we will all have done just to get to Gotland, and then to explore the island and our surroundings, both in and around Visby. We've set that up so that there's a fairly good division of time, and we just wanted you to know ahead of time that we would be doing that so that it won't be travel, travel, travel all day, every day, nor will it be long days sitting in classrooms when you'd really like to be out exploring this wonderful island. There will be a great combination of all 3 of those.
It's also worth pointing out that Visby itself, the city, is largely pedestrianised. It's only local service vehicles and residents that are actually allowed to bring their vehicles into the city. So you can wander around most of the streets largely free of traffic. It really is quite beautiful to just walk around this medieval city with its incredible collection of historic buildings and old churches. You can just wander around the place. It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, it doesn't show it in this particular picture, but Visby is a very colorful city. So once you're inside the walls, there's a lot of color, and of course it's all set against the backdrop of the Baltic Sea, which on a sunny day is incredibly blue. Yeah.
So let me tell you a little then about the labyrinths on Gotland. It's Sweden, as you may know, actually has probably the largest concentration of historic labyrinths anywhere in the world. There's somewhere in the region of 350, maybe 400 historic labyrinths recorded in Sweden. And there are actually somewhere in the region of, well, over 40 labyrinths on Gotland itself. There's certainly at least 40 stone labyrinths that have been recorded, labyrinths just laid out on the ground using boulders and rocks. There's also 3 churches with historic labyrinths inside them, another modern church that also has a labyrinth, and also a medieval cross with a labyrinth on it, which has now unfortunately been destroyed, but was also situated on the island. As you can see from the map here, the labyrinths are scattered from one end of the island to the other. Some of them are in churches, the ones that are marked Kyrka, and others are on farmland, up in open forest, some are out on the coast. There's an incredible selection of these different labyrinths on the island. The most famous one is the one that's actually just on the outskirts of Visby, and we'll get the opportunity to go visit this one probably several times while we're there, depending on the weather. It's a short 15-20 minute walk from the city centre to get out to it. It's a large stone labyrinth, and it's difficult to know how old it is. It was first documented back in the 1700s, and it's clearly older than that. It's certain that this labyrinth is at least probably 500 years old, and it's still just sitting there, and you can just go walk it anytime you like. And there's another one that's probably of a similar age in the churchyard at Frøyel. And we'll definitely get the chance to go and see this labyrinth. It's a beautiful small labyrinth, and it's situated in a churchyard. There's all kinds of theories about how exactly it gets to be in the churchyard and which comes first, chicken or egg, church or labyrinth. But these are some of the things that we'll actually be discussing in some of the teaching that we give to you while we're there. There's another beautiful labyrinth that's actually a wall painting, a fresco in the church at Hablinbo. This is another one that we'll definitely go and see. And you can see this one has quite a peculiar design. We can talk about that when we're there. And we can also talk about the possible significance of this little figure here. Is this somebody dancing in the labyrinth, or is it actually just a marker for ownership of the building? We'll see. Here's another labyrinth. This one's actually in Visby itself, and situated in front of the Cathedral of St. Maria. Quite recent though, 1985, and has a curious meandering design, but another labyrinth to go see. And there's also a lot of labyrinths on the island that are actually largely from the 19th or very early 20th century, and they were being built by teachers and lighthouse keepers. It's difficult to know how old some of them are because there's not very good documentation, but some of them we know date back to the mid-1800s, and they're still there, and people still go walk them, and we likewise will go and track a few of these down. Some of them are in quite remarkable settings. This one that Mybakken is set in a field with some big prehistoric burial mounds. These two are near lighthouses at Halshuts and Holmuden, and were built by lighthouse keepers about 100 years or so ago. And there's some slightly more modern ones. This one from the 1970s is next to an outdoor museum where they've gathered up old buildings and windmills and all kinds of old structures and set them up at an open air museum. And then on the other side of the road, next to the road, they built a stone labyrinth as part of that museum complex. Once again, you can just pull up on the side of the road and go walk this one anytime you like. And there's quite a lot of these modern, what are known as tourist labyrinths on the island. They're built by holidaymakers, some of them Swedes, some of them from further afield. Some, like the little one down here at Nyhamn, are quite standard little classical labyrinths, just built on the shoreline. This one was built probably in the late 1960s or the very early 1970s by a young girl who was staying at a holiday cottage that's just behind this little labyrinth. And up at the top of the page here is one of these very strange labyrinths at Follhammer. It started life back in the 1970s as just a simple spiral, but over the years visitors have added more and more to the labyrinth, loops and all kinds of other pathways. And at first sight it looks rather more like a maze, but in fact you can walk pretty much the entire thing as a labyrinth. And it's huge. It wanders off through the trees, off into the forest, and people just keep adding to it. And we'll have a chance to walk a number of these labyrinths set in these landscapes in Gotland. Do you want to talk some more about this, Kimberly?
Oh, I was just smiling to myself, looking at our warm headgear and our jackets. We are in the Baltic, even though it is very close to midsummer. The weather can be chilly. It can also be beautiful. So, you know, the hours of daylight are quite amazing. I can't tell you how early it gets light because I didn't get up that early. But I know that when I was going to bed by 11:30, I was taking photographs of sunsets. So the days are long, and at least some of our days at that time of year should be absolutely stunningly beautiful. And as Jeff said, the lilacs were out, and if it's not lilacs, it will be the next flower to bloom, the roses. Scotland is famous for its flowers, and they're beautiful. Here we were walking the labyrinth. We're out on the coast. It was chilly and extremely moving to be walking on these paths that have been there for so long and that are just part of the culture. You know, there's no flashing billboard that says labyrinth, labyrinth, labyrinth. It's just part of the culture. Some of them have been put there by students, by teachers, by different organizations, by churches, and many of them we don't know why or who put them there. So just that sense of moving with the labyrinth into the culture is extremely moving and for me quite emotional.
Yeah, this summer at Veritas Summer School, one of the students actually, her family is from Gotland, and she grew up there, and she said that her family has a labyrinth in their neighborhood that's been used for generations, and it's such a ingrained part of their, you know, culture and life that they don't even really think about it as a special thing. It's just part of their ritual and their practice. And so she really finds it fascinating that, you know, in the United States a lot of people are discovering the labyrinth, and in Sweden it's kind of an ingrained thing that's not really held. I mean, it has special significance, but it's also got this real deep history, which is really exciting. And then there are also some new contemporary designs that have been created. And one of the great things about the island is that it offers such a variety of labyrinths in such a small space. So, you know, when I first went in 2011, I was able to walk 20 different labyrinths in the course of 5 days, just driving around the island. And this is a labyrinth that actually is a classical, like a double classical labyrinth. So it's got like a 5-circuit classical form, like in a symmetrical mirrored design. So this is actually in the back of the Ingmar Bergman Museum. And so the Swedish filmmaker Ingmar Bergman, he filmed a lot of his movies on Gotland and also lived there for the end of his life. So it's kind of fun to connect, with that. And then Pippi Longstockings is another thing that was based in Gotland. So, there are these other kind of fun things that are related to the island that you get to experience.
Yeah, it's I would say you're probably correct, Lars. You went to see 20 in just a few days. There really is probably nowhere else in the world, frankly, where you can go and see so many labyrinths in such a small geographic area on one island, at any rate. In the course of just a few days. The concentration of them here and the range of different sizes and locations is quite remarkable and unparalleled. There is nowhere else quite like it.
Yeah, and as a labyrinth designer and builder, I think it's fascinating to walk the classical form, but to walk it in, a variety of different settings and sizes and numbers of circuits. And so it's really interesting, over the course of the week to kind of visit these different locations and to see how each labyrinth feels and what it brings up in you, to bring different questions to different labyrinths, or maybe to bring one question to the entire journey. So, and then we can talk about it, in small groups, because we ride around the island in these 9-person passenger vans. And so last year we had 2 passenger vans, and that kind of creates smaller groups within the larger group. And people very openly would share their experiences after the different walks that we went on, as we continued on to the next destination.
I've been visiting Gotland for the best part of 20 years on a number of occasions to visit these labyrinths and record them and carry on the work that was first started by my colleague Jon Kraft back in the 1970s when he went to Gotland on 2 occasions to document the labyrinths there. And while we know a lot about the labyrinths on Gotland and their locations and their ages, there are a few that still remain mysterious. There's a few that have been documented in the past and I've never seen. Lars, I know there's some that you've still not seen, and undoubtedly on the trip this year there's 1 or 2 that, well, we'll go in search of them. We'll go see if we can find them, and if so, we can record what we find, take some photos, get a GPS fix, and obviously in my role as the administrator of the Worldwide Labyrinth Locator, add another of the Swedish labyrinths to the online database.
Yes, last year we discovered 3 new labyrinths and 1 spiral. So
yeah,
there was really a sense of exploration, kind of like Indiana Jones, traveling around looking for these lost and overgrown labyrinths.
That's one of our goals, is to make this a journey where we participate, where we don't just take you out and show you things that are all known, they're already known. We go and we explore and we look, we feel, we listen. Things will have changed. There will be labyrinths that we think we know, and they will be overgrown, but there might be another one which has either been built, or last year we found one that had been completely, what was the word, Lars, renovated, had been cleaned and restored, and it had literally risen out of the earth, back out of the earth. That was tremendously moving to see this labyrinth that we knew had been there once, that Jeff remembered from having seen some years ago. We had known it was overgrown, and here it was in new splendor all over again. So,
yeah, it was kind of like taking the chairs off of the Chartres Cathedral labyrinth. I felt like, that we had returned to this labyrinth that had been buried under soil, and then to find that the soil had been removed and that a bench and a sign had been put in there. It was kind of like removing the chairs and reopening this space that had been, closed. So it was really fun.
And we also on the trip last year heard about a labyrinth on a farm not far from Visby. So we called there on the way back one afternoon to see what we could find. And sure enough, there was a little small labyrinth next to the farm shop at a place called Lillebjerg's. And I spoke recently to the owners of the farm, and apparently they only built that labyrinth just the previous year, as a sign of respect for the people that had worked that same farm that they now currently own over the course of many thousands of years, because during some work on the farm a few years ago, they found an old prehistoric fireplace, a cooking place, which was carbon dated to over 2,000 years ago. And they actually built this little labyrinth on their farm next to the farm shop, there for the children to play on, but also as a mark of respect for the people who'd worked the land before them. And to come across little labyrinths like that, which you didn't know about simply because the last time you were there they didn't exist, is a real joy and a real pleasure.
This is Dawn here. I want to thank our presenters. Believe it or not, it is 12:30 and time for us to close the webinar. I do want to say there is limited space on this pilgrimage. So if you're interested, please register right away. There's more information on the Viriditas website. And if you have questions, email them in and we'll get them answered early next week. You can use contact@viriditas.org for any questions you might have. And if need be, we'll forward them to one of our 3 leaders. Thank you so much. It made me want to go. So I'm hoping it inspired some of our listeners out there as well.